My name's Thomas Waddle. This is the Whisky Sour Hour, episode 14. Guys, it's finally happened. GTA 6's trailer 2's dropped. This week's episode is going to be GTA heavy. It's something we've spoke about in the past. And it being Scottish, you have to be very, passionate about it. I think it's a national treasure that nobody speaks about. It's a bit more kind of, global these days. Just obviously with the teams that create it, it's not just Rockstar North anymore. But I feel like we're going to speak about the trailer on the podcast. We'll speak about the trailer in depth. I have notes, and I wanted to do almost like a look back over the series as a whole, because I think it's touchstone. It's something that the majority of people know. It's the crossover into just everyday life. Everybody knows Grand Theft Auto, so we're going to take a deep dive. But I think the world stands still when these release, and this is no different. With it was supposed to come out this year, and obviously there was a delay. And it's supposed to come out this year. I don't think anybody actually believed it was going to come out this year. And then there was a post earlier or late last week, and it basically said that it's going to be next year, and that's fine. We were all happy with that. There's that much coming out in the future. You need time to be able to process all this. So this trailer drops. You're at your work and you don't see it. You don't even realise it's going to be there. You come home, see this. This is the kind of thing. You close the windows, you shut the blinds, you light a couple of candles, pour yourself a cold one, a whiskey sour perhaps. You put it on and you just sit back and take it all in. The trailer itself, amazing. The hype is real, and I think when you think back to when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, that set the world on fire. The records it broke. It's the largest thing ever released. It's bigger than the Avengers, bigger than Star Wars, bigger than DC. I'm ashamed to admit, that's true, but it's gigantic, and by the time this comes out, will almost be 13 years, which is disgusting, since the last entry. And I think this is just going to be the new benchmark. It is going to blow the doors off the place. The trailer itself, I think, it gives you everything you want. It's a more grounded story by the looks of it. I always think that Grand Theft Auto, it seems to it goes a little bit off the rails later on. If it's UFOs or jetpacks in San Andreas, which are cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do like the kind of more grounded aspects of it. And Grand Theft Auto 4. Grand Theft Auto 5, sorry, was certainly started off really grounded, and I think it kind of gets lost in the weeds later on. But that we're getting ahead of ourselves. Set in Leonida, which is like the state in which Vice City takes place. Now, when we're talking about the games in a short time, Vice City is like keystone for me, and we'll go into the reasons why for that. So I'm very excited. I'm going to be the guy that's going to you'll get a game and you'll just drive and explore, and it just looks like such a fun environment. So it's like Miami, the Everglades. You're going to have the Keys as well, which are like islands, like archipelagos off the south coast. It's going to be amazing. You play as two characters rather than your three like the previous games. So you've got Jason Duval, who just looks like he's wanting to have a good time. A couple of beers, he's fixing roofs. Guy shouts him. I'm not sure of the names. I know that since the trailers came out, they've released information regarding characters, but you've got Jason just wanting to have a good time, and clearly having beers that are Modelo rip-offs, which Modelo is my favourite beer, and I managed to pause the trailer and see that I believe it says Pendejo, which anybody that's Spanish and is listening to this is probably like, oh, cover your ears. But just wanting to have a good time. Has a girlfriend who's obviously done something wrong and is in jail. Lucille Caminos, sorry, and we're just in their life. They get wrapped up, Bonnie and Clyde style, into some sort of criminal conspiracy. From the trailer itself, it looks like maybe the police are corrupt. Maybe, I mean, imagine the police being corrupt in Grand Theft Auto. That is a wild take, but I'm sure it'll all pan out in the end. But yeah, it's not just obviously the setting and the kind of story, because we all know that Rockstar delivers these. Anybody that's played any Rockstar game, which to me they are just the premier development in the world. They are just so focused. They don't have any time limits. They will take as long as they need to take to make a game. And I think it shows with, don't get me wrong, that they're probably still crunch, and I think crunch to a point can be good, a little bit of pressure, but you don't want to be pulling 14-hour work days and then having to go home and be back in 6 hours after that. That's not healthy. But I think if you want to get it done, and a little bit of pressure can be good. I personally, I find that works for me, but not for everybody. I get that, and I think moving away from that kind of crunch culture that Rockstar was known for, especially with the likes of Red Dead in 2018, there was a lot of stories about that. But story-wise, they're the most well-written games outside of maybe Naughty Dog. But even then, I think GTA is obviously a lot more tongue-in-cheek and satirical, and I do enjoy a good laugh at some of the puns that they have, and we'll talk about some puns in a little bit. But after Red Dead and what that done, and just how it humanised these characters, and on top of just obviously the writing, the graphics, everything just worked hand in hand, and it creates a world that you just want to live in. So watching this, and you're seeing the keys, the boats, it's just going to be an exciting time. I cannot wait for May 22nd or 26th of May 2026. So I took a few notes, obviously going through the trailer, just little things I noticed, like how in depth and ingrained the detail is when you look at like the beer sloshing about. The beer physics in this are wild, but you've also got obviously the detail in like the hands and arms. You're seeing like hairs on arms, and it looks like there's some sort of technology going on, whereas anybody that doesn't play games, the characters when they're animated almost are like, if you think, like mannequins that move, whereas some kind of newer games, you get like a little bit of skin movement, especially around the face where there's a lot of kind of detail put in. But this actually looks like people have skeletons, and there's like the skin and tissue moves correctly. It sounds really weird, and the example I'm giving is they're in a certain club that you might go to, and it just looks like the actual there's like meat in them bones, if you get what I mean. It's just everything moves. It's so detailed. Like I keep saying detailed, but it's the way it is. And the hair physics, unbelievable. When like watching it, it looks like, as I say, there's going to be some sort of a bank heist that goes wrong or has gone wrong. And anybody that's played Grand Theft Auto 5 will remember the bank heists and that, where the best bit, I know that they brought more in online, but the story I think could have done with a few more. So I'm hoping that you get, you can lay out the plans, and there's maybe more than like the five banks that you or the five heists that you do within it. So it looks also as well the fact that Lucia comes out of prison at some point during the game, that there's probably going to be side activities where you're doing community service. So somebody that's never done that, I don't know how they're going to make that interesting. Hopefully it's not just the litter picking that you see, but that looks it looks interesting how they're going to do that. I remember, if anybody's played, if you remember back in the day, you had a game called Bully, or if you had it in PlayStation before it came to the kind of newer consoles, it was called Canis Canem Edet. It was a dog eat dog. If you got caught being bad in school, you would do detention, and that could be sweeping up snow or mowing the lawn, which you're filling up a little bar to get to 100%. that was enough for me. Hopefully it's improved since, in the 20 years since that came out. But as I say, kind of going through the police, I think, are probably going to be a big part of it. Obviously, the police were always a big part of Grand Theft Auto games, but it looks like there's a part when they're like, we've got to protect each other. Whether that's like a dirty group, like The Shield, if anybody remembers that show. It could be one of them. I believe they were based off like the Rampart division, so it could be something like that. I think with the amount of Everglade kind of crocodile stuff going on, there's definitely going to be like some sort of drug running scams or schemes that you're going to be in on. Looks like there's cage matches, so side activities again. You're going to be, I remember it was at San Andreas, you could learn how to box in a boxing gym, so there could be, you start off, you could fight, but by the end of it you're dropping people with tornado kicks and double leg takedowns. So getting to there, I'm a big fan of infrastructure and just seeing how different everything is. I'm hoping that the city itself is like vast and really detailed, but I'm also looking forward to just being able to explore the side streets and just get into the kind of granular, and again we're going to say detail here, but I just love, like, there's somebody crafted this. It's not just populated randomly. There'll be something interesting. The city itself looks alive, or it could be a little town. There's part in the trailer when you see like what looks like an iguana, but in the past we've had cats and dogs, so you'll probably see more of them. I'm hoping anyway. The technology was always there. Obviously we've got crocodiles, like I says, but I can imagine there's some sort of wild boar in these games. There always is that'll attack you out of nowhere and send you flying. Deers perhaps. There's the physics on the the sand. There's a gym. It looks like a Gold's gym, which I think is based in Los Angeles, but there's an outdoor gym here because the weather's going to be amazing anyway. And the character Jason is at this gym, and it looks just real. Like, I don't know if it's the animations, if it's, like I say, this whole like meat on bones body animation that they're doing, but it just looks vivid. I don't even know how else to describe it, but certainly there's going to be side activities. So maybe if anybody remembers back to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, you had almost like a role playing game where you could you could become ultra fat, ultra skinny, ultra fit. You could dress whatever way you wanted to, and there was like mini games that came in. So maybe that's coming back. In mini games wise, Grand Theft Auto adds games in games. So Grand Theft Auto 5, you could do like an 18-hole round of golf. Tennis was quite big. Anybody that remembers San Andreas, again, there was a really, really rudimentary basketball simulator. But things that I noticed in this, there's basketball, pool, fishing, kayaking, scuba diving. There's probably going to be some sort of races, I imagine, like if they're not on I was going to say skidoos, but the jets, ski jets, they escape me. But yeah, there'll be races on the water. Dirt bike races, I'm sure, will be a thing as well. So they'll all be there. There's also a lot of emphasis on what looks like planes. Perhaps there is more than one airport that you can go to. Again, anybody that's listening to this will be like, what is this? Anybody that doesn't know Grand Theft Auto will be like, what is this? You're excited about airports? I think it could be that big that it requires it. I hope there's little references to the older games. I notice at the end you've got Phil Cassidy, the one-armed. I used to always call him the one-armed bandit back in the day when I used to play it. Somebody that we know a lot in the older games, but obviously the HD universe, as they call it, from Grand Theft Auto 4 onwards, is its own thing and separate. But they have done characters similar, and if you remember in Grand Theft Auto 5 you had Grove Street. You could go there, although it was not a part of the story in any way, but it was like homages to the older games. So Phil Cassidy being one, and owning ammunitions where you get your weapons from, could be interesting. And he was always a good character anyway. He's voiced by Gary Busey back in the Vice City days, so anybody that played the PSP Vice City stories remember you're with him when he blows his arm off. In fact, it could, and I think that might be actually one of the other ones, maybe Vice City, the original one, but it's just they're just so good. Like I'm saying iconic, and I can't remember exactly when it is, but a lot of the older ones kind of bleed in together. But yeah, like, it blows his arm off, so maybe that's something that could happen here. It's probably something that, when you're playing it, that you're going to be thinking he's going to lose his arm at some point here. Like I say, there could be Ocean View Hotel. I see there's like a shot where you see it looks like it's like Miami Beach. It'll be like Vice Beach is what they used to call it, or Ocean Beach back in the day. And the Ocean Beach Hotel was where your first safe house was be. So it possibly could be there. Like I say, you've got the Keys as well. So it's like an island chain off the south coast of Florida. They have their own one in this. So it's going to be a totally different lifestyle out there. I'm hoping you get some key lime pie, which is a staple if you go to the Florida Keys. One of the locations that I noticed, there's a bar. Everybody loves a good bar, and it's called the Rusty Anchor. When you play Rockstar games, you expect them to be a little bit more kind of tongue in cheek. So I'm assuming there's a joke in there somewhere. One of my favourites, anybody that remembers Grand Theft Auto 5, if you're buying in the stock exchange, what's it called? Anybody else just say the Bossack, but if you're Scottish it means something totally different. But yeah, there's as I say, when they were in the bar, the Rusty Anchor, the amount of beers that you see is unbelievable. Like, and I'm looking through them all, and I'm like, somebody's going to, a company's going to make these, and some fool like myself is going to pick them up and not drink them and just put them on a wall and not enjoy them. But I'm sure somebody will go and do that. There's also a couple of bands, and again, that we're talking about like the kind of tongue-in-cheek nature of Grand Theft Auto, even though it has like a quite a serious story. It can be. There's always a kind of light-heartedness to it. One of the concerts that's advertised in the bar is by a band called Hummers and Strummers, which again, I'm not pointing any fingers. I just think it's a funny rhyme, but I'm sure there's a little bit more to it than that. Wink, wink. And yeah, so and there's also a bit where you see in the bar there is a commemorative like kind of plaque for a hurricane. So does that mean that we're going to get really, really intense weather? Anybody that played Red Dead, if you were in like a lightning storm or anything, man, it was pretty intense. So wee things like that, it begs the question that these are just like tone setting kind of things. Hopefully that there's a bit more to it. There's swampland, you're seeing helicopters flying over the top of it. I imagine there's going to be a lot of secrets that you'll be able to find. Anybody that remembers, but again, back in the day, you had your hidden packages, and eventually it branched out into like shooting pigeons and stuff like that. I don't have time for all those collectibles, but I will get some of them, I'm sure. And I can imagine walking about the bayou, or not the bayou, sorry, the Everglades. Bayou's New Orleans, I believe. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be loads of that. And I'm hoping I've not seen any. But I'm sure there'll be some, the airboats with the big fan in the back of it. I always loved them, like in like the kind of TV shows and that. I always thought they looked quite cool. So there's also what looks like to be not just, obviously you've got Vice City as the main kind of settlement, but there'll be, or the main city, but there'll be settlements based around the area. I've seen a couple of signs. I know that, again, there's been like lots and lots of screenshots, but because they've put the video up in HD, I've spent my time, to be honest, going through the video. The amount of screenshots is over 50, I believe. But yeah, I've noticed Port Gellhorn, which could be an area that you go to. Rockstar just have this technique. They have this skill of making really interesting cities, even though it's maybe not the main one. Anybody that remembers, obviously, like Sandy Shores in Grand Theft Auto 5, it was like the kind of side place where Trevor stayed, but I spent a lot of time just walking about, wandering around and seeing how weird the locals were. And as I say, Red Dead, it was one of the major places you went to, but Saint Denis was just a hellhole. I tried to spend as little time there as possible, not because it is bad, it's just because I was role playing as a cowboy in that, and I'm wanting the wilds here and not like the almost cobblestone like streets. I want like to be out living life. But yeah, you've got there also the Gellhorn. Port Gellhorn. It looks like there's going to be more biker gangs in it, so anybody that remembers Lost and the Damned for Grand Theft Auto 4, it was one of the expansions. It was always it was my least favourite of them, just because I wasn't mad keen on, you know, motorcycle clubs. But that was, I believe, it was before the likes of Sons of Anarchy. So you know, it could, this I'm sure will eclipse Sons of Anarchy anyway. If there's any story right, there could be the potential to join a motorcycle club. Obviously, you've got that, and then in the middle of the map, from what I could see for the website when I was looking at it, you've got a place called Ambrosia, and it's like in the heart of the map, although they don't show you it, and that's probably going to be like, I mean, is it okay to say it's probably going to be hillbilly country? I imagine, like, you know, really good banjo players. It's like going down to, you know, like South Ayrshire. I'm sure. Whoa, what is with the Ayrshire hate? It's just a joke. It's just a joke. But yeah, there's also a couple of kind of like shots of the countryside, and I imagine there'll be hunting mini games. There always is, and I know we're speculating a lot here, but that's where the fun is with these when you're so far out. You know, we're a year away, and the good thing with Red Dead, the good thing what Rockstar does is they usually do like gameplay trailers, as in they speak about a specific thing that they're doing. So whether it's the weather systems or the way in which your character can only hold so many guns, so they have to, especially in Red Dead, if you have like a double barrel shotgun, so a two-handed gun and a pistol, your character would have to carry that, or you could quickly switch between them, and just how the Rage engine, the Rockstar Advanced Gaming Engine, I think it was called, how that would react and how your character would react, because a lot of the time the animations weren't, you know, set. If your character was running, you would pull back, they would have to like shift their weight, so it felt really realistic in that. Guns wise, it looks like there's going to be, you know, your mad assortment of bazookas and machine guns, but there's like an explosive pile up at one point with the police. It's, you know, it's Grand Theft Auto, in it. You're always going to have that, and there looks like to be that a lot of returning vehicle brands. It was something that kind of came in later on in Grand Theft Auto, so it was like Grand Theft Auto 4 onwards, there was a lot of brands that you saw, but I definitely seen a Vapid, which is like, you know, your kind of big Ford Raptor 4x4s. Again, puns are massive in Grand Theft Auto, and yeah, it's, as I say, when you see the characters driving, it's not just like in the older games where they would sit in a car and it would become the car almost. They wouldn't move, it wouldn't really matter. The characters themselves actually seem to move an awful lot when they're on a car or bike, or you know, and riding a boat, for instance. There also looks to be, you know, like again, returning brands. Dinka the boats brand is there, and the characters wise, you know, there looks to be a lot of character in the characters that you'll be dealing with. So I don't think it's going to be a case of, you know, if you look back to, you know, GTA 4 had some quite good characters, but Yusuf Yamir, I believe, was one, and I don't even know if I can sing the song he used to sing, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But his gold-plated helicopter was always very cool, and Gay Tony, that whole add-on was amazing. So those characters stick in mind. Grand Theft Auto 5 had a lot of good characters, but I feel like not as many stick with you. Like the likes of Lamar, you can't go wrong with, but there's a lot of other ones where you're like, what was that guy's name again? And if you were to play it again, you'd probably think, have I done this? Has this been done before? But certainly just by the looks of things here, it looks like it's going to be it's going to be filled with, you know, memorable characters at least. One of the things I do like is if you look at this it looks like a snippet of the city. It looks like there's a transport system, so I'm daft on riding subways and trains and infrastructure and how everything works together. So hopefully there's a really interesting transport system, because, you know, GTA 4 was based off of New York, or their version of it, in Liberty City, and it had obviously your subways and etc. Whereas GTA 5 Los Angeles, it was like a mass transit tram system. It just wasn't as cool. So I'm hoping there's something like that, you know, maybe a wee L train perhaps, a wee ferry. I love a ferry, and we'll just see what happens there. But again, I know what we're talking about it, and just speculation at this point, but the things that we have seen, as I say, the amount of fly US planes you see in there, it just makes you think, is there going to be like something to do with airports? Because for a fact you might not be able to buy one of these like liners, but if there's going to be drug running, are you going to be able to get like a cargo plane that you're going to have to pay money into? And I just love it's if you have money in games and you have like a weapon or a house or something, and it starts off, it's like, run down, and you put money into it and it gets better. I love just seeing it. Your money can go down, but I just want to see the improvements, how if the gun looks different, if the house looks different. And this is just a total sidebar, but anybody remember when you played the Grand Theft Auto clone series, True Crime? You had True Crime New York City, and the place was ran down, but if you done like little missions and stuff, the neighbourhoods would gradually look better, so there'd be less graffiti and less rubbish blown about the streets. Little things like that, just, I don't know, man, they add character to these sort of things. But also, like, that I know that there's a phone number you can call in the trailer. It's kind of pretty prominent near the end. I've not phoned it because I don't want to run up any charges, but from what I've read online, it doesn't lead anywhere, so it's not worth doing. I did take note, and I think, here we go, that'll be quite cool. But yeah, it just looks amazing. Like, the original idea for this was I was going to watch the trailer like as a watch along and just kind of talk about it that way. But as I say, I was writing down little notes and kind of tidbits, and just I thought I'd put it in here. I didn't know the song, but it's the Pointer Sisters, Hot Together, which it's quite good. And from what I've read online, it was featured in Mel Brooks' comedy Spaceballs. I don't remember that. I've seen Spaceballs a lot of times, so I remember the Schwartz in that, but I don't remember much being on there. The trailer itself states at the end it was captured, so that what they were running it on was based PS5. Obviously the Xbox Series X, it'll be on in Series S, so I don't know how it will run in a Series S. I imagine it'll be chugging along at 30 frames, but you've got the PS5 Pro, so I imagine that'll be the place to play it before it goes to PC at some point down the road. But it's just, it's going to be huge, and I mean we're over a year out at this point. But when that comes out, it's going to be seismic. Everybody's going to be talking about it. There may be holiday days getting put in for that. But yeah, what's your thoughts on the trailer? I personally loved it. I think it's had the largest, from what I've read, I believe it's the largest entertainment like trailer launch of all time. Deadpool Wolverine was 320 odd million. This is a clip start by 100 million. It's in the 400 millions in 24 hours, I believe. On the Rockstar official YouTube page, it's over 80 million views at the time of recording. That is, it just shows you the reach for this. People aren't going to the cinema, but they're sitting down to watch this. My only concern is with all the talk of how expensive games are becoming, because you're reading online saying that this had potentially had a budget of $1 billion, and you've seen Nintendo in the last month or two, and Xbox have came out and said, or Microsoft have came out and said that a lot of their games on a Spectrum could cost $80, which is like $79.99 here. Does that mean that we're going to see £100 to play this, or $89.99, $99.99? That's a possibility here. The amount of people, I can guarantee you that over 3 days, this will sell like easily 10 million copies. It's coming in late in the generation. There's everybody and everybody and their grannies either got a PlayStation or an Xbox. They could charge £100, and I'll be honest, I might actually pay that. I'm sure if Lauren's listening to this, she's about to run through the door and drop kick me. But it's one of those ones. I think people would pay that. It's a luxury, and we've waited 13 years for it. I don't think that makes it right, but business is business, and I think a lot of people are going to be making a lot of money off this. So hopefully £80 is the max. Hopefully that's where it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was higher than that. I mean, I know when you're buying the likes of limited edition, the collector's edition, it comes with like a statue of a boat or something. you'll be paying into the hundreds for that, but you're getting all the little bonuses. But for the basic entry, base version of the game, the bog standard, I don't know if you can honestly justify £100, but we will see. We will see. So what's your thoughts on Grand Theft Auto? Please put them in the comments. Let's start a little conversation here. That'd be quite interesting. But going over where we are now, obviously I'd mentioned earlier Scotland being where Rockstar North came from, DMA Designs, Dundee back in the day. I feel a kinship with Grand Theft Auto, and I wanted to just look back over the history of it, and not like in depth as in like we're going to break down when everything is made, but it was my own personal history, because everybody's got their own. When they played their first game, what was the first game you played when you got your PlayStation? Was it Spyro the Dragon? Was it Metal Gear Solid? Final Fantasy 7. So everybody's got that. I want to just talk about how my career with Grand Theft Auto came about, and as I say, let's just foster conversations. I would be really interested to know what your sort of introduction to the whole thing was, to the whole series. It'd be really interesting. So this is how I started with Grand Theft Auto. It all started back in the day. You couldn't buy games as easily as what you can now. They were so expensive. So what you would do, you would rent games. So there was Garnock Video, which was like the blockbuster of the Garnock Valley, and Grand Theft Auto was there. It was a taxi cab in New York, and the front cover, it was flames coming off the Grand Theft Auto sign. I was like, what is this? And at the time playing it, I got it. I really shouldn't have. And at the time playing it, it was top down. And I remember at the time thinking, this is a wee bit janky, but it was fun. There was a kind of comedy to just causing bother. I don't think I ever done any story missions. I think I just ran about for the weekend, just causing absolute mayhem. And it was good for the time, but it was never one that was going to live with me that long. On the PlayStation, you had the likes of, like we've mentioned earlier, Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot, Metal Gear Solid. I don't think it rates with those games. I think it set up the foundation of what these games would become, but they were pretty mindless. I don't want to sound disparaging. I think the Grand Theft Auto series, as we know, it started with Grand Theft Auto 3, and I think anybody would admit that, even though you had 1 and 2. You also had the expansion packs. I remember being in Glasgow and really young, and I saw Grand Theft Auto London, and it was like 1969 and then 1961, I think, and I always wanted them. And when I've seen in recent years what it looked like, it was just more of the same, like a 1960s overview, like kind of layover on the graphics. So it was like a top down. It doesn't grab me, and I don't think it's very appealing. Grand Theft Auto 2, I remember again renting that from Garlic Video, and there was an opening video that played when you put it on, and I thought this was like the coolest thing ever. And it was the guy, I don't watch EastEnders, but the guy's in EastEnders now, and he was like the main character, and a pretty cool looking handsome guy, so I was like, that's pretty cool. So playing that, it was like a more refined version of the first one, so top down, just causing bother. Again, it was like gangs. I never really done much with them. I think I maybe got a little bit into it. I remember having a flamethrower, and I don't know the character or the people that were in the streets, but it was like gangs of people walking about. I don't know if it was like Mormons or something, and you see like set them in fire and they're like running about. Again, I shouldn't have been playing these games, but it was on the PlayStation. You wouldn't know what you're actually doing. It was just little pixels running about. So that I forgot about Grand Theft Auto at this point. This must have been like 2000. I forgot all about it, and then I used to get the official PlayStation magazine, and I started seeing Grand Theft Auto 3 for PlayStation 2. What is this? What are we doing here? This looks pretty cool. And I remember being at my friend's house, and he had it. It must have came out some point in 2001. You know, I must have been in his house, and it came out in 2001. I must have been in his house just a little bit after that, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I remember playing it and thinking, I need this, and I was begging, please get me this. And I don't know how I managed it, because it wasn't around a birthday, because back then I got games on my birthday or at Christmas, and it was neither of those times. So I got Grand Theft Auto 3 and I played the life out of it. It was it gone 3D at this point, so this is like the modern, like the way in which Grand Theft Auto looks. This is when you think Grand Theft Auto, this is what you think. So Liberty City, I think I spent far too much time running about just causing bother, but actually doing the story as well. And playing it recently with the definitive editions that came out, which are actually now pretty good. At the time they were diabolical, because you couldn't see when it rained and things like that. When you know, the difficulties, actually, it was pretty tough. I don't know how, and I shouldn't have been playing it. I don't know how 10-year-old me was able to do it, but yeah, no, managed to finish it with, you know, at great cost. I don't imagine 10-year-olds these days would be able to do it. So, you know, hang your head high if anybody who was under the age of 10 managed to finish it. Fair play. And I don't advocate for kids these days to be playing it, but I just remember the story and how interesting it was, and it felt like you were. I remember I'd seen Goodfellas really young. Again, shouldn't have been watching it, and it felt, I was like, this is like Goodfellas, man. And obviously playing it as an adult now, the amount of, you know, character actors that are in it, and you're like, oh, it's Michael Madsen, you know, my God, or Joe Pantoliano, who, you know, just turn up for the smallest of roles. I don't know how they managed it, because, as I say, Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, they never set the world on fire, so there was obviously, they saw this game getting made, and it looked like nothing else. It redefined what we know as open world, which is meaning that you're not just like playing levels to get to the end. It's, you can just run about and do what you want. You know, you could be a firefighter, you could be an ambulance, you could be the police if you wanted to. And it never, growing up, obviously I was in with all this. It never once did you think that, you always knew there was a disconnect. It never felt real enough that there was a problem there. And I think this is something that happened actually a lot later on, where the graphics do get that good that you're like, oh, this actually feels quite uncomfortable. But there was always a kind of cartoonness and a light-heartedness with Grand Theft Auto. So when you used to see the likes of Jack Thompson, who was an American attorney that used to just have it out for violence in video games, it never, you know, hit me. And I was in the demographic where you would think this should be turning me, you know, loco. I should be going crazy and, you know, wanting to climb a clock tower with you know, an automatic rifle. But, you know, you never did. And I know obviously there's people out there that have mental health issues, and this, you know, maybe exaggerates, you know, exacerbates those conditions. But it was never something that, as a kid growing up, and you know, the majority of people in your class at school were playing it. It was wild that, to me at the time, thinking like, are people actually affected by this? Because it was, you knew it was a joke, and I never knew the time, like all the double entendres that were in there. But it's like one of my favourite parts of it, and it's like some of the writing that you get. You're just like, I don't know how anybody could take it seriously. Like I say, nowadays when the graphics are so realistic, it is harder to get that disconnect where you're like, oh, this seems a bit cruel. And as I say, we'll talk about something about that a bit later on. But it was always just fun, a bit tongue in cheek, and you know, just being able to be in that world. I remember doing the taxi driving, because I loved Crazy Taxi growing up, and I was like, this is like a game with Crazy Taxi inside it. So you were like, you had hours and hours and hours of enjoyment out it, and it's something, you know, and you're kind of older years, as you mature, you think to yourself, I don't know how I could pour that much time into something. Sidebar here, the Oblivion, you know, clock time that we're at for gameplay is 18 hours in the last like 2.5 weeks. So you know, work that out if you will, but that's kind of where we're at right now. But back to, you know, Grand Theft Auto, just the amount of hours you would spend there, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about probably the most iconic thing about these games, out with the dodo, which, because obviously 9/11, they clipped its wings, so you couldn't actually fly in it, but you could try. And I don't know how many times I tried to take this like wingless plane from the airport and try and fly it in over to Staunton Island, because it was like 3 islands, so you were in the furthest to the left, Shoreside Vale, try to get there, and maybe even try and get to Portland, which was the other island, and it never happened. But the fact is, when you land in the water, you die because you can't swim. And I'm thinking, I used to have to load that in every time manually and then drive back there, but I used to spend just afternoons trying to do that. But the most iconic thing, in my opinion, with Grand Theft Auto is the soundtrack. The soundtrack in Grand Theft Auto 3, out of the original 3 on the PlayStation 2, so the I don't know, I don't even know how you would, the trilogy on the PlayStation 2, shall we say, the PlayStation trilogy, the soundtracks far and away the best thing about them, but you have to preface that by saying Grand Theft Auto 3, in my opinion, had the weakest. Don't get me wrong, there was nothing wrong with listening to Flashback and having the Scarface soundtrack on, but there was never that way where you're like, oh, I'm going to go back and listen to that. Or, if you go on Spotify, which is hopefully where you're listening to this, if not, YouTube, Amazon Music, see wee plugs here and there, but you would search the likes of Grand Theft Auto 4 or Grand Theft Auto 5 Radio Mirror Park, and it was one of the radio stations, and it would have 30 songs. Grand Theft Auto 3's know about that. It's got everybody knows Hot Tonight and all the other Scarface kind of tunes. There was Keja, which was reggae. Again, never my jam, but it was, you would put it on if you were driving the Yardie cars. You would put it on just to kind of get into character. Rise FM, which actually had I'm not going to go into it, but it's got a weird sample from a Shiny Toys gun song, or which turns out it was a band member, and I went down rabbit holes reading about this. So yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but yeah, the soundtrack in these games just is amazing. And I think as I got older, what you listen to the most, and especially when I was playing the definitive trilogy 3-4 years ago, it wasn't the music I was listening to, it was actually the chat. And Laszlo, the radio host, who was a producer in the game, it must have just been hilarious just recording all these funny conversations, and just the writing process for that. If I was going to do anything, if you asked me what's the dream job, apart from making double entendre movie titles, I think working on the radio stations for Grand Theft Auto would definitely be up there. So you've got Laszlo and Chatterbox FM, and you're just just laughing at everything that's getting said now. So I played this to, it was well beyond what you would do nowadays. You're just going out and causing trouble, doing everything you could do, and then you start hearing rumours, oh, there's going to be another Grand Theft Auto out, and in the space of 14 months, they don't just churn out a sequel and it's just there you go. In 14 months, I think Rockstar make one of the greatest sequels of all time. And I know nostalgia is a thing, and playing it back, obviously I know that it's has its flaws, but Grand Theft Auto Vice City is, in my opinion, probably one of the greatest sequels of all time, and it is one of the greatest and one of my favourite games of all time. Not just because the setting, which is 1980s Miami, Vice City, obviously it's where Grand Theft Auto 6 is set, in the HD universe, so it's going to look different. Obviously we spoke about that, but it was a keystone for me growing up. It didn't just it changed me. I'm trying to kind of put into words just how much it means to me. Music taste, maybe even dress sense to a point, and certainly just it moulded me to an extent to who I am today. If you pick up my Spotify top played list, there's songs in here that I've got for this. So we're 23 years removed recording this right now from that coming out, and my pastel colours have not faded. I listen to Emotion regularly, in Fever, the radio stations. Like I says to you, this is, if you say to someone Grand Theft Auto Vice City, obviously you remember Tommy Vercetti, you remember Lance Vance and his dance, Ricardo Diaz, you remember everything. The soundtracks stick with you. So to say that this isn't, not just like one of the greatest soundtracks, not just in gaming, but like in ever, it cannot be understated just how important that is, and the fact that when you play the definitive edition, they've actually not got some of the songs that were originally in it. So when you're driving around, like even to this day, as I say, 23 years removed, I still remember like Billie Jean playing. That isn't in the definitive edition, and you feel it to an extent because you're expecting it. But the game itself, set in Vice City in 1986, it's crazy, playing it, because at the time when it came out, it was like 18 years removed. 18 years removed for here, you've got Grand Theft Auto 4, which is crazy. That sickens me. Or Grand Theft Auto 4 was announced, it was like 2007, so that's wild that time has passed. But I remember like putting like ridiculous amount of hours, because the gap between the two, this came out in 2002, got it for my Christmas, and I remember panicking, thinking, I might not be able to. Like, these are dark thoughts for a 10-year-old, but I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it through Christmas to be able to play this. And when you think back to like what was going through your deranged mind back then, maybe it did have an effect on me playing these games. But yeah, Tommy Vercetti voiced by Ray Liotta, and just the cast in this is just crazy. You've got like Robert Davi. Robert Duvall would be very cool if he was. But Robert Davi is the Colonel, and it's so good. And like thinking about it now, the warm feelings I'm sure it's radiating across. The fact I can't get the words out, but it's incredible that the setting, like, as I say, the pastel colours. I don't know how many pink t-shirts I wear, and I'm pretty sure it comes from playing this and growing up watching Italian football. Like, there was just something about that time and that era that created that. Playing Grand Theft Auto, even recently, obviously with the definitive trilogy, it's not lost any of its charm. It's one of the greatest settings, the city itself, which when you actually look at it is very basic. Like, it's two like very long islands connected with some islands in between. Some of them being very funny, like Starfish Island. Anybody that's laughing at that over here, get your mind out the gutter. But that's exactly what it's about. Just double entendres, and it made you feel like it was Scarface. It was a send up of Scarface in a way, and I say a send up in a sense that it was serious, but it was filled with laughs as well. Ray Liotta, I think from what I've read, was not like keen on like games and stuff, and whether he signed on just for the paycheck, but I never felt like he phoned it in. He was amazing, and it just. Everything about it is just amazing. That I can actually see the sunsets and the pastel colours when you're driving along. We mentioned earlier Ocean Beach, and going to the hotel, and I can remember like the little kind of Spanish tune that's playing as you go into the hotel. It is outstanding, and if it's one of those ones, it's dated absolutely, but you owe it to yourself if you think you want to get into the hobby of playing something. Getting into the series, if you're going to go through them all, like I would say play Grand Theft Auto 3, absolutely. Maybe even play 1 and 2 just to see like how far we've came. But start at 3. I think you'll spend a lot of time with Vice City. I think 3 you could jump off of, but the characters and just the setting and the music, it's just incredible. And like I say, you've got even just the chat shows that are on there are hilarious. But I listen to something like V-Rock and getting into that, it's it's incredible, man. Like Emotion, Fever 105, it sticks with you. And Flash FM, which obviously later became Flashback. Love little in continuity reasons for changing the names. It's incredible. It is, and as I say, going to Spotify or whatever streaming service you use, even going to YouTube, just type in like the like Fever soundtrack from Vice City, and it's just banging after banging. It is incredible. I cannot overstate enough how important that is. And the 2 years between that and San Andreas coming out, at the time that was when you start becoming a bit more aware, and you're reading more articles. The internet was starting to come on there, but you were getting the gaming magazines. You were starting to see like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas kind of coming out, and I remember reading getting a gaming magazine probably in mid 2004 and reading about it. I've probably still got it somewhere. I'm a bit of a holder that way, and I have a lot of old gaming magazines. I've certainly got the magazine that had the review of it, because 2004 was a pretty great year for games. Like, you know, you had, like, this is just a little sidebar, but if you were arguing like greatest years in gaming, I would say 2004's up there. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Halo 2, Need for Speed Underground 2, Burnout 3 Takedown. You know, the list goes on, but I mean, that's a pretty all-star lineup right there. Stellar, some would say. San Andreas comes out. It's totally out of my comfort zone. 1992, Compton, very much, you know, Boys in the Hood. I never really grew up with any of that, so, you know, listening to a lot of the rap songs, it was a bit of my comfort zone. Now, don't get me wrong, the radio stations were, you know, eclectic. There was so many different kinds of music, but again, the music being a big part of it, it really got me into a lot of kind of bands and groups that I never really thought about in that, but certainly it put me out there. But the story wise, it was a lot more grounded to begin with. So you started off in the hood, and I was going to say in San Andreas. San Andreas is a state. You started off obviously in Los Santos, which is like a send up of Los Angeles, and you end up in San Fierro, San Francisco, Las Venturas, Las Vegas, as it goes round, and it comes round in like a kind of big circle, and you end up back there, and there's like riots going on after, you know, the Bernie King. Riots, I think it was called, in the Los Angeles riots. And I remember playing like vividly, you know, you've went through a story, and it's went from being like very small scale, like Boys in the Hood, you know, I was going to say Don't Be a Menace, but I think that's maybe a comedy, so maybe it's not, but there is comedy in it. And it's just this epic kind of story, and like I says, it comes full circle. And you've got Samuel L. Jackson probably putting in arguably one of his best performances, and that's no disrespect, as Officer Tenpenny. And anybody that, again, that played these games growing up, you knew just how much you hated Tenpenny. So, you know, when he gets his comeuppance at the end, and the riots are caused by his actions, it's pretty amazing. And as I say, at the time, playing it back, putting countless hours into it. I mean, I remember even having like a 360, which came out the following year in 2005. I had one of them, and I was still going back and playing Grand Theft Auto while having that. And I mean, you're thinking, going back to standard def after HD is it's crazy, but that's just how good these games were that they brought you back in. San Andreas was huge. I remember when getting it, I never expected to get it when it came out at launch, and we used to get the school bus back from the secondary, so you would get off and you were walking down. I remember walking down my street, and you know, the person I was with was like, something's at your window there. And my dad got again, when you remember, you opened up the Grand Theft Auto cases, they had the maps in them, and the books were epic. It was like, you know, a travel book that would describe the state or city you were in. So if it was 3, it was 3 was Liberty City, then you had the Vice City pull out. The San Andreas one was like really in depth. There was loads of like little adverts for things that you might see in the game, or just, you know, like kind of comedy things, but you always had the kind of pull out map, and you would study this. You know, I never wrote in it. I know some people that did. I couldn't do that because I wanted to keep it, but the map was like blue tack to my window, and I just never expected it, man. And it was amazing. Like I came in, I think it definitely, maybe it wasn't launched, because I remember vividly patching going to watch fireworks. So it was around kind of Guy Fawkes night, being like, nah, I'm playing Grand Theft Auto and just loving every minute of it. So I remember getting that, like that was like sticking in my mind. The other two, you know, getting them before Christmas and then getting Vice City at Christmas, I was like, this is amazing. And like I say, you don't get games as much back then, so it was you knew it was going to last you. But there's just the vastness of the area. I remember reading it, and again, being little Scottish, there's always little kind of like Scottish references. Like we mentioned the Bossack, which is the financial, you know, Wall Street kind of Grand Theft Auto. It's the Bossack. But like things like my mum used to say, like, oh, you know, if you're in the middle of nowhere, you're in the back of beyond. There was an area in San Andreas called Back of Beyond, and little things like that. You're just like, somebody's wrote that because their ma used to say that. That's very cool. But yeah, San Andreas, CJ, just an amazing character. We mentioned Grove Street, and I'd seen somebody in one of the local pages that you know, every town's got like their their page, and somebody was like, post the street that you grew up on, and I was so tempted to post a picture of Grove Street and see if anybody got it, but I thought I'm going to confuse a lot of people. That's just a bit, I don't want to do that. So you've got all that, just the soundtrack, the story is epic and wild and crazy. You can, like I says, you can be a tractor driver, you can do all these little odd jobs, you can even drive a train, which again, somebody that loves infrastructure, I was all over that. You can do all that, you can just cause carnage, you can be a nice guy, you can be a bad guy, you can rob houses, it was like a world of possibilities, and when you look back now, it's like, you're like, oh, that's cute, that's quite quaint, but when you're in this, and it's just wild. And then, well, I'm not going to go into too much detail with these because I didn't play them a great deal. For all that, I had a PSP, a PlayStation Portable. I never really played. I had the Liberty City and Vice City Stories games, and they were great, but I've maybe played them like once, and that was like 20 odd years ago. I've played, the main entries a lot more than once, and they stick in my mind a bit more. So anybody that's got them, like if you know something about them that you're like, oh, this connects with that, or even if you just want to highlight how good the music is in them, because I remember Phil Collins being in Vice City Stories. I remember that vividly. That was pretty cool. But if you want to highlight that, please pop a little comment in the comment section, and we'll discuss that. But the wait between San Andreas and Grand Theft Auto 4 was difficult. It was 4 years, and again, we're still at a point where you're not getting games all the time. And the good thing with the original kind of 3 that came out in the PlayStation was it came out around the Christmas time, so it was like October. So if I had to wait to Christmas, it wasn't too bad. I could maybe do it. Grand Theft Auto 4 came out kind of May, June time, and I never had the funds for it. And I remember being so annoyed that there was folk off school, and they had it. I was so I was jealous. I was bitter. I was jealous. And I remember being in French, and the teacher was like, "Oh, I can't believe such and such is off." And I just remember thinking to myself, he's dogging it. But I never said that because I'm not a grass. I am not a grass. Brian Lemon is not a grass, or whatever that is. I remember just thinking, oh man, I'm so annoyed, and I know that. And I'll be honest, Grand Theft Auto 3 is the one I've played the least. Now I know it's some people's favourite. Playing it like twice, I think it never grabbed me as much, and it's crazy because when you look back, like I have fond memories of it, but the whole like Nico story, and I know like people love him, I just found him a kind of hard guy to get. I don't, maybe it's after watching Borat, I don't know, man, I just couldn't get into like the kind of story. And as maybe playing it older, it was a lot more mature than what you were expecting, because we'd mentioned a few times that this had went into the HD universe, so that means that the cities are reimagined. This was like what like New York would feel like, and then you had like Alderney, which was kind of like New Jersey. It felt a lot more realistic, but it kind of lost to me, it lost a bit of the charm. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 brought that back. But off the back of that, I remember when the DLC was announced, the Lost and the Damned had already mentioned that. That's the biker kind of story, which was there again, very cool. Just it wasn't aimed at me, and it was around this time I realised that you don't need to play everything. Maybe it's something that isn't for you, and that's fine. But then the Ballad of Gay Tony came out, and it was all about like just having a good time. And anybody that knows Eric Prydz piano, it was massive. That is ingrained in my mind. We're talking about music. That's like the biggest song to come out of that, in my opinion. But you got to run like clubs as Luis, and I just thought he was a more interesting character. I had a lot more fun playing that, and I remember getting like the double play set kind of thing, and it was like for a discounted price you got like the add-ons, and you didn't need the original game to play. So I'd seen recently it was like £7 I think in sale, and I kind of wish I'd got it, but I don't have the time to be. Grand Theft Auto games, they're labels when you go into them, and they're huge. So I never got around to it. But yeah, the Nico story, I know he does grow in you. I found it. I don't know, man. I found it. I'm going to be controversial, right? It's my least favourite because I've not played it enough. Maybe if I went back and done it, it would be good. But even then, there's like characters that I because I've played it so long. I remember there was a guy, Little Jacob. I just found him annoying. Like your brother, Roman. Yeah. Man. It's my. I know this is controversial, and I'm not trying to be Grand Theft Auto 4. I need to go back and play it. That's all I'll say. I'm sure it's good. I'm looking at my Brew here, wishing like it was something a bit stronger, just so I could justify these hot takes. But I wouldn't say I was soured on it. I think what had happened was I never played it to a lot later on, but in the meantime I'd played Red Dead Redemption, and we'd already mentioned that spoke to me a lot more. I felt like it was more mature. I felt like, I'm 17, 18 at the time. I want to be, I don't want to just be playing that, and like Red Dead kind of resonated with me a bit more. I was wanting more of a story, and I fell in love with that. Now at the time I'd went back and played it, and I felt, Red Dead does this better, and then Rockstar had released Red Dead. They then released Max Payne 3, and what they done was they took like aspects of Red Dead, like story wise and the kind of writing, and then they took the writing for that and then poured that into the Max Payne 3, which came out at the time. But then they took things for that, like the graphics and the way in which the cutscenes moved into actual gameplay, so it was like seamless. And I know games had done that in the past, but what Rockstar seemed to do is every game prior led into the next one. So you had all these benefits from Grand Theft Auto 4, Red Dead, and Max Payne 3, and then Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. And anybody that remembers when that came out, September 2013, it was everywhere. I remember, vividly being the trailer had came out, but I think it was 2 years earlier. I think it came out in about 2011, and I'd went to a midnight launch. It must have been Call of Duty Black Ops. I remember being there. Funnily enough, my mate Harvey, you bought, and I just have a weird memory for these kind of things. He bought Black Ops that night. That's all everybody was buying. I don't really play COD, so I bought Dragon Age 2, and I remember the guy's face going, I don't know if I can sell you this, because this is just a midnight launch for that. I was like, can you try? And he did, and I got it. But I remember being at that, but standing in the queue, the trailer for Grand Theft Auto was just playing constantly, and there was like people around me going, I can't wait for that to come out next year. Little did we know it was not going to come out for another 2 years. But when it came out in September 2013, within 3 days it had made $800 million. It's the largest entertainment launch ever of anything. So bigger than Avatar, bigger than Star Wars, bigger than Marvel, DC. It's absolutely crazy. Playing it, it's amazing. It got me back in. It found that balance of realistic and a little bit camp, and I really enjoyed it. What we were talking about earlier though is with anything, obviously the graphics look more, it's photorealistic some ways, with some of the vistas you see looking out over Los Santos and then like the state of San Andreas. The mission that sticks out, there's a mission where you have the option, and at the time you done it because you thought it was going to be funny, but you torture somebody and it's really rough. Like I struggled with it. I think now you can actually skip it, but I remember at the time thinking, I feel really dirty doing this. This is bad. And listen, I still love it, but I remember just thinking, is this maybe too far? Have we gone too far with this? And I did question just how much I was enjoying it, but in hindsight, I was just maybe being a bit soft. But Grand Theft Auto 5 it's the benchmark. Every game, I mean, you don't create a total subgenre of games called like GTA clones if you're not the best. So like we mentioned true crime earlier, but even the Just Cause games that kind of spun out into their own kind of stunt fest games, it was just like a big trying to be Grand Theft Auto, and it didn't match up. And GTA 5, just the world, the setting, just like walking around. I remember taking pictures. One of my first Instagram posts for 2013 is me taking a picture of the screen because, again, Scottish. There's a saltire at the beach, like wee things like that. Just you're like, that's so cool. You could like walk along their version of like Santa Monica Beach, and then you've got like the gym that we mentioned earlier. You've got like the outdoor gym, and it was just amazing. Like the way characters would interact with you, and the animations, how it all interacted. The soundtrack, amazing. I'll be honest, and I know we'd mentioned earlier, like Vice City, and it stuck with me. The one that sticks with me the most, I mentioned Radio Mirror Park. I'm going to be honest, it's non-stop pop. Cara Delevingne being the DJ was incredible. I don't know if I've listened to more pop songs since then. Obviously, it's been released since then on other devices, but on other consoles. So there was like enhanced editions put out that came out on like the Xbox One, PS4, and then there was an even more enhanced one that came out in PS5 and Xbox Series X. But they added more songs to it, so I can't remember exactly what the original ones were. But the fact you've got like Lady Gaga and I'm going to be honest, like that the Work Freemasons, like unbelievable. It's it's I'll be honest, it's in gym playlist, alright. It's where it is, and I just everybody's going to do it when GTA 5 is about to come out, about to drop. Everybody's going to boot up GTA 6 comes out. Everybody's going to boot up GTA 5. You're going to get in whatever radio station you listen to, get in a car. You're going to do the loop. You're going to drive up all the way around like Palomino Bay and come all the way back round into the city. Maybe do it a few times. Hopefully it's night time, and if it isn't, you're just going to wait. You're just going to have a nice send off. The characters, it's going to be amazing. Obviously, a GT Online as well. We've spoke about this before. I'm not a big online guy. It was never. It's the time sink you need to put into them, and especially GTA. It's like there's a lot of money you can spend for it. I'm like, we'd spoke about spending £100 in a game. I'd dread to think somebody that's really high up how much money they've spent. You've bought the game at £70, and then you've bought like a Megalodon credit card that's in the game. Is that another £80 you've sunk? And how many times have you done that? That doesn't bear thinking about. But when you go back and like actually just kind of take it all in, it's going to be a really sad time saying goodbye to the characters and the likes of like Michael and like Trevor and just their relationship. But just the time as it goes on, it's going to be amazing. What a time to be alive. There's going to be a new Grand Theft Auto in just over a year, and we've got 5, and even then, like watching the trailers, you're like, this is the jump from 4 to 5 is what 5 to 6 is. Like I cannot wait. It's going to be a cultural touchstone. Get on board and just be excited. But if you need something, you've got all the games to go back and play. You can play obviously the definitive editions, which are in a really good way. You can go back and play them. So you get 3 Vice City and San Andreas. You can get 4. I don't know if it's in PlayStation, but you could certainly get it in PC, and you could mod the heck out it, or you could go on and play GTA 4 on your Xbox, and then you've got GTA 5, which is literally everywhere these days. You could get that anywhere, and if you haven't played that, I'll be surprised. It's like the second best selling game of all time, or third best selling game of all time. Wild. Just absolute money printing machine. Rockstar are the best, and like them or no, they're the best for a reason. They're the guys that are trend setting and taking the genre forward. A lot of people would rest on their laurels. They never do. They're swinging for the fences. I hope you look back at the trailer, you'll maybe pick up on some of the things we've spoken about, the speculation that we've been doing. This has been a great chat. I've been so excited to talk about this all week. Usually, it's slow news weeks. You're like, what do I talk about? We've done over an hour talking about Grand Theft Auto. I could probably do 2 or 3 more, if I'm being honest, because I just love it that much, and we could go into granular detail. Maybe we'll do that another time, maybe on Twitch or something. But I just wanted to get the feelings out there. I already feel a relief doing that. But as always, if you want to get in touch, please leave comments. Comment about what your favourite song is, what your favourite game is. Tell me I was wrong. Maybe GTA 4 is the best one. It just isn't mine. But and we could have a wee bit of discourse for that. Obviously, you've got YouTube comments, Spotify comments. Even pop a wee message in the Facebook pages, or you can send us an email at contact at the whiskysourhour.com. You've got all the socials there. Please just get in touch. We'll have a wee chat about it. It'll be glorious. But yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5, it's going to be some send-off next year. Can't wait. 6 is going to be unreal, man. It's going to be so good. I hope you've had a good one. I hope the Saturday's good. I hope the weather stays good. And aye, we'll see you on the other side. I've been Thomas Waddle. This has been the Whisky Sour Hour. Cheers.